Greetings, bienvenue, come on in, sit on down. I have been so violently ill the past couple weeks, and what do you do when you're sick? Well, you take a stroll down memory lane. You go back and play some of your old favorite video games, like Pokémon. I played Pokémon Red and thought to myself, this right here, this is what true Pokémon is. None of that crazy, weird stuff that we've been getting in generations recently. This is classic. This is beautiful. And after a while, I finished the game and decided to load up Pokémon Gold and thought to myself, now this is what Pokémon's truly all about. And then Pokémon Emerald, and this is what Pokémon is truly all about. Pokémon Diamond is what Pokémon is truly all about. I came to realize I don't know what Pokémon is all about. I mean, looking at each generation to generation to generation, these can feel like completely different games. Mechanics change, gimmicks are dropped entirely, and entire side quests are fully ignored even within their own game. So, that's what I wanted to look at today. Try to find the missed opportunities within Pokémon and do that F word that we artists hate that people talk about with our art and fix them. So without much further ado, let's hop right into today's video.
Hey, you need to rock it, okay? It's what we do.
I think that we can all admit that Pokémon has a terrible habit. Not making bad ideas, most of the time, but making amazing ideas and then immediately abandoning them like they never mattered in the first place. This franchise is absolutely filled with dropped mechanics, forgotten lore, abandoned gimmicks and storylines that feel like they should have changed Pokémon forever. And instead, they get shoved into a closet and buried underneath 15 different Charizard forms. Am I salty? Yes. Will I be ending my Charizardinous tirade anytime soon? No. But today I want to talk about some of Pokemon's biggest missed opportunities, and more importantly, the designs that I made to try and fix them. Let's start with Gen 1. Pokemon Tower is still one of the darkest moments in the entire franchise. You climb this haunted graveyard tower investigating a restless spirit, uncover Team Rocket's crimes, use the Sylph Scope to reveal ghost Pokemon, and eventually discover that the ghost haunting the tower is actually a dead Cubone's mother, killed defending her child from Pokemon thieves. This is insane for Pokemon, and at the time really shook up our viewpoint and challenged what we thought this game could or would be. I mean, imagine it. You buy Pokemon Red, you learn about Pokemon, you learn that you want to go out into the world and catch them all because some Pokemon professor doesn't want to do their only job, and find that Pokemon faint, you continue your adventure and you move on, only to then have your entire viewpoint shaken up as you realize that there truly is evil in the world. And what makes it work so well is that it changes Team Rocket in that moment from goofy criminals into something genuinely evil. Because suddenly Pokemon aren't just fainting anymore. They're not just getting poisoned or paralyzed or burned or frozen. No, they're dying. And if you somehow survived the games emotionally, God help you, Pokemon Generations came in afterward and twisted the knife even deeper, giving us a fully animated segment featuring this adventure, something that the mainline anime didn't even think about covering. This episode is devastating for those of us who remember going through this quest. So, naturally, when Generation 2 introduced the Burned Tower, you expect something on that same level. And, I mean, in all technical fairness, it is. The lore surrounding the tower is incredible. 3 Pokemon perish in a massive fire. Ho-Oh resurrects them, and they become Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, the best legendary trio. And no, I will not be hearing any counter-arguments at this time. But there's one huge problem. We don't actually get to experience any of this story. We show up after everything has already happened, and instead of participating in this legendary tragedy, we just spend most of Johto chasing lightning dogs around the region like some kind of deranged mailman. And that feels like a massively missed opportunity. Because imagine if the player was actually involved in the events of the burned tower. No, not like that. That's arson, and we are not wanting to get involved with that. I'm saying, imagine if the fire wasn't accidental. Imagine if there was another legendary Pokemon behind it all. Something chaotic and hateful, trying to lure Ho-Oh out into the open, bringing in that concept of evil that we experienced with Team Rocket, and now involving it onto a different creature, a new Pokemon. Suddenly, the player is investigating the catastrophe, tracking a dangerous legendary across Johto, encountering the beasts throughout the region, and maybe even fighting alongside them during these key moments. You still keep the roaming mechanic, you still keep the mythology, and you still keep the mystery. But now the player actually matters to the story. So naturally, I had to design the Pokemon responsible. Now, here's the thing. Ho-Oh represents rebirth, hope, continuation. So I wanted to bring in the opposite. A Pokemon obsessed with endings, a creature tied to extinction, something that hated the very cycle of nature itself. And eventually, I landed on a
Fire Wolf.
No, I landed on a regular wolf, but you're very close. More specifically, I started looking into the Hokkaido and Honshu wolves of Japan. Real species driven to extinction through human interference in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And suddenly, everything kind of clicked. A fire-type wolf fueled by resentment, a legendary cryptid blamed for disasters, a predator of birds, cats, and dogs alike, and a creature that sees humanity more so as a plague. So I introduce you, unfortunately, to Lycackle.
Lycackle, the Breaker Pokemon. When Johto was first settled, this Pokemon was believed to have gone extinct. However, recent sightings have proven otherwise. Wherever Lycackle appears, catastrophe soon follows.
I wanted its design to feel authentically Gen 2. Sharp triangular eyes, simple silhouette, flowing shapes, minimal clutter. But the blue flames were intentional. Ho-Oh's flames feel sacred, controlled, divine. Lycackle's flames feel unstable, violent, like they shouldn't exist. And honestly, this is the kind of storytelling I wish Pokemon leaned into so much more often. But not every missed opportunity is story related. Some are mechanical. Some feel like Game Freak had an incredible idea and then just forgot to finish it. And no Pokemon represents that better than Castform. Remember Castform? He's this little guy, the one with the boobs. You get this weird little weather blob at the Weather Institute in Hoenn. The same Hoenn where Kyogre controls rain, Groudon controls drought, Rayquaza calms the weather apocalypse, and the entire region constantly screams about weather every 5 minutes.
Let's go live to Ollie Williams with the Black U Weather Report. Ollie? It's raining sideways!
Okay, cool. So naturally, Castform, the weather Pokemon, would have a form for every major weather condition in Hoenn, right? Right? Well, let's go over our checklist. We have the sunny form, the rainy form, the snowy form. All makes sense. And then you walk directly into one of the biggest sandstorms in Pokemon history. Right there, around Route 111. And Castform just seemingly forgets that sand exists. Excuse me? Hoenn has Route 111, literal deserts, constant sandstorms. The region is practically chewing rocks at all times, and Castform somehow looked at all that and said, not my problem. So, I fixed it. I wanted this form to feel rougher and more unstable than the others, like the wind is barely holding the body together. That rocky texture, that swirling dust, it just feels like it works. And the Pokédex entry kind of writes itself.
Castform, the Weather Pokemon. This Pokemon gained the ability to use the vast powers of nature to protect its tiny body. It borrows the powers of sunlight, rain, snow, and sand to transform itself. Of all its forms, this one is said to possess the most volatile temperament.
I can already picture this little man spinning violently onto the battlefield like he's about to rob a bank in the Wild Wild West, yeehaw! And honestly, with Pokemon winds and waves looking like weather might become important again, please, Game Freak, give this little weird weather creature his dirt form, I'm begging you. And hey, if you want this cast form or any of the other Pokemon from this video for yourself, then it's all up on the Ko-fi right now. You should be seeing that link pop up in the top corner, and I hope I can see you there. Honestly, Diamond and Pearl might contain Pokemon's most fascinating missed opportunity of all, because unlike the others, it's not necessarily about something missing. It was about something that they showed us way too much of. See, Sinnoh's mythology was incredible because it felt ancient in a way that Pokemon had never really touched on before. Gen 1 had experiments, Gen 2 had legends, and Gen 3 had forces of nature. But Gen 4? Gen 4 gave us religion. Creation myths, gods of time and space, ancient tablets, reality shaping itself into existence. It felt like this generation was massive, and the center of it all was Arceus. Or at least the idea of Arceus. That's the important part, because originally Arceus worked best as this distant, incomprehensible concept. Not really a Pokemon in the traditional sense, more like a force, a creator, a whispered myth hidden in ruined temples and old text. The moment that you heard, "This Pokemon created the universe," your brain immediately started filling in the blanks. And that is where mystery becomes powerful. Because what could possibly live up to that reveal? How do you visually represent God in a franchise where you can also own a pile of sludge named Muck, and he loves you? And somehow, Pokemon answered that question with White Llama with a fence around its stomach. Now, listen, I actually really like Arceus' design. I even like its original beta design. He's so squishy and amorphous, but I think revealing Arceus as a fully catchable, fully understood Pokemon fundamentally damaged the mystique of Sinnoh lore, because suddenly the unknowable creator of existence is sitting in my PC box next to a Bidoof named Tax Fraud. And that changes the tone immensely. Arceus should have remained distant, maybe glimpsed, maybe implied, maybe encountered only through dreams, visions, ruins, distortion in reality itself, but something beyond physical understanding. Because the moment Pokemon gave us a clean official render and base stats, that mystery was gone. And what makes this even stranger is that later generations proved Pokemon absolutely understood the value of mystery. Because Black and White introduced one of the coolest concepts the franchise has ever created. The original dragon. No, not Reshiram, no, not Zekrom, no, not Kyurem. The thing that they all used to be together. A single legendary dragon split apart by ideology itself. That is incredible mythology. A Pokemon literally torn apart by conflicting truths and ideals. And unlike Arceus, they never actually showed us what it looked like, which honestly made it so much more interesting. Fans theorized for years. What did it look like? Was it balanced? Was it horrifying? Could it combine again? And then Black and White 2 rolls right around. The perfect opportunity to reveal it. Kyurem is fusing with Reshiram and Zekrom. The story is literally about reunification. Everything was leading towards the original dragon finally returning, and then...
And here we go. I hope you're hungry for nothing.
Well, not nothing. Half of nothing, which by mathematical standards is still nothing. Pokemon stopped just short of the reveal, and honestly, that is where my frustration comes in. Because Pokemon handled these two mysteries in the exact opposite way than they should have. Arceus, the literal creator of existence, should have remained unknowable. The original dragon, a fractured legendary whose return could have completely shaken the franchise mythology, should have been revealed. One needed mystery, the other needed payoff. Instead, Pokemon removed the mystique from the god of their universe and hid away the reveal that fans would have absolutely lost their minds over behind a sequel that kind of failed to deliver. Not in every way, but in this way specifically. And I genuinely think if the original dragon had appeared in Black and White 2, it would have gone down as one of the most iconic moments in Pokemon history. So here's my take on that original dragon, Zaryurum.
Zaryurum, the Balanced Hue Pokemon. It is said long ago that this was the first dragon Pokemon to come into existence. People feared its awesome power and near limitless strength, as it was able to harness multiple elements at once.
Fire, electric, ice, dragon, there were so many possibilities given the lore that we got, and I would have jumped to hear how it all worked out, but unfortunately, we were left kind of wanting more. It's starting to feel like we're never gonna get. Either way, I love every version of Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. The problem is, I just wanted more. In fact, I don't necessarily know how this Pokemon itself would function, so I'm gonna leave that up to you. Let me know down in the comments what abilities this Pokemon, as well as the rest from this video, should have. I look forward to hearing what you guys come up with, because Arceus knows I ain't gonna do it. Diamond and Pearl introduced one of the coolest side mechanics Pokemon has ever had. Mining, excavation, digging for fossils and treasures underground. I mean, just look at the popularity of games like Pokopia and Minecraft and ask yourself, yeah, why did we remove this aspect of the game? I mean, I spent an embarrassing amount of my childhood smashing walls looking for fossils, and then I did the same thing in Pokemon 2. And Pokemon basically never evolved this mechanic afterwards, which is crazy because Sinnoh's mythology is perfect for it. We have gods of time, space, antimatter, but somehow nothing tied to the earth itself. Nothing tied to the land beneath Sinnoh. Nothing tied to excavation. The mechanic was invented for this game that instead wanted us to look elsewhere from the earth itself. So I thought, what if there was a legendary Pokemon buried underneath the entire region? Not evil, not malicious, just ancient. A sleeping titan, unknowingly supporting civilization on its back. Something that would attach the earth itself to the concepts of space, time, distortion, and God, I guess. So yeah, that kind of became the crux of this idea, of this Pokemon. How we could make mining, excavation, digging, seeking out fossils one of the most popular video types that I ever put out, and I don't know why I do anything else. How are we going to attach this idea to the broader and bigger story elements that Sinnoh kept pushing in our faces, trying to remove us from the concept of the Earth in a game where that was its newest mechanic? So I designed Atliza. Atliza, the territorial Pokemon.
It is said that this Pokemon formed deep beneath Sinnoh's mountains and slumbered until Regigigas shifted the continents themselves. Humans unknowingly built cities atop its massive body while it slept beneath the earth.
I wanted Atliza to feel connected to the creation trio without copying them directly, so its shapes are heavier, broader, almost construction-like. Its body language feels tectonic, industrial, and ancient, like a legendary Pokemon built around the concept of terraforming itself. And honestly, the shiny form giving construction equipment vibes really handles the idea a lot closer. I'm absolutely obsessed with that hat, and this thing feels like the final boss of Home Depot come to life. I mean that in the highest compliment possible. Alola. Honestly, I love Alola so much, and it does so much right. Trials were refreshing. Regional variants were genius. Ultra Beasts were weird in the best way possible. It genuinely felt like Pokemon was finally willing to experiment again. But there was just one thing missing. One very important thing. One that I'm sure if you just watched the previous part that I did about Diamond and Pearl, something that you're gonna understand I have a deep love for. That, of course, is fossils, which It feels insane because Alola was the perfect region to reinvent them. See, early fossil Pokemon were mostly, and comprised of rock types because scientists were working with incomplete data. That's why they all came back weird and jagged and ancient looking. But Alola's entire identity revolves around nature, overgrowth, flora, ocean life. So instead of reviving fossils through raw reconstruction, what if Alola, given that it was already reinventing what Pokemon was, reinvented fossil revitalization by using living plant matter to fill in the missing gaps? Now, suddenly, fossil Pokemon become overgrown, mutated, symbiotic with nature itself. And I get it, Alola is based on Hawaii, a place that famously doesn't have fossils because it is too new of a landmass. But we see in Galar, just one generation after, that the Pokemon Company is so willing to experiment with our understanding of fossil Pokemon. So why not do it one generation previous? Alola is such a beautiful and amazing setting that really brings the concept of nature heavier into the Pokemon world. So I would have loved to see ancient nature being brought in as well, which is why I came up with Vineceratops.
Vineceratops, the creeping vine Pokemon. While fossils are rare in Alola, scientists imported several from overseas and revived them using native plant life to compensate for damaged DNA. The resulting Pokemon possess traits never before seen in their ancient ancestors.
I love this concept. Grass-type fossils feel so natural in hindsight that I genuinely don't understand how Pokemon never explored it. And visually, this thing came out exactly how I wanted. Ancient reptilian features tangled with invasive tropical plant life, like Jurassic Park directed by Mother Nature herself. And honestly, that's the frustrating thing about Pokemon. The world is so creative, so flexible, so full of possibilities. But sometimes it feels like the franchise introduces these amazing concepts, gets scared of them, and moves on before fully exploring what made them special in the first place. But honestly, that's part of why I love making Fakemon. Because sometimes the coolest part of Pokemon isn't what we do have, what we did get, and what we will be seeing in the future, but that thought process that goes into wondering, into experimenting and exploring what Pokemon left on the cutting room floor, what we know we may not get in the future, what we believe should have happened instead. And I mean, I really wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for the fact that Pokemon sometimes drops the ball. So I'm happy that they do. It feels like they're feeding us. It feels like they're giving us something to play with, and I'm never one to turn down a new toy. So who was your favorite? Who are you adding onto the team? Let me know down in the comments below. And hey, while you're down there, maybe let me know what your favorite generation of Pokemon was and why. Was it for the mechanics? Was it for the Pokemon that were revealed within that generation? Was it because of her? Either way, drop down in the comments and let me know. And on the way down there, maybe stop by the description where you can find various opportunities to support the channel. You can become a Patreon supporter where you'll get access to these videos early, high-resolution images, and Photoshop files for these videos every single month. Or maybe you want to become a YouTube member where you can have the opportunity to ask some of your favorite creators questions with my podcast Stern Conversations. That's actually moved over to the second channel, but I'm going to continue to upload those since there's a larger audience here and I want you guys to be able to take part in those questions. Plus, you'll still get the videos early and a bunch of other goodies. But with all of that said, it sounds like you know where to find me. Don't miss the opportunity to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Yo, he's the Sterninator, commission Terminator, it's beautiful work. I'm choked up like Darth Vader. If you hating on my man, you not a smart hater. He'll draw anything from Digital Circus to Arc Raiders. Hobbies playtime, Bendy and the Ink Machine, Five Nights at Freddy's Shoot. He drew the whole team. His blends of Pokemon with loads of franchises. If you listening to this, guess you know where to find him.